Crowhill here. Today we review a porter and ask, how will AI affect education? Hey, good evening, Bigweed.
Good evening. How about some beer and conversation?
I think that's a fantastic idea. What are we drinking?
This is a porter, a robust porter.
Robust porter.
Yes.
All right, I like that stop. Okay.
Yes. So what's on your mind?
Well, when I was a kid in elementary school, I remember there were some dumb kids in the class, like kids who didn't understand the 10 times table. I mean, that level of dumb.
Right.
And everything had to be slowed down for the dumb kids.
Yeah.
And I was complaining to my mom, look, I want to move ahead. I know this. Can I go to the next thing? And my mom was telling me, well, in the future, people will have their own computer and you'll be able to go at your own pace.
Okay.
And I always thought, well, that would be nice.
Right.
And the next question is, are we there? That's kind of what's on my mind.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe let's drink this beer and then we'll talk about that.
Okay, this is Founders.
Yeah.
It is a robust porter. This is there in Grand Rapids, Michigan, meaning a normal porter, I guess, is around 5.5. They're not particularly strong. This is a 6.5. But it also says here on the bottle, roasted coffee notes, which you'd expect, and graham cracker sweetness.
Okay, it's remarkably funny that you mentioned that today because I was looking for a snack. And I went into the place where we keep that kind of stuff, and I found this box of graham crackers.
All right.
And I like graham crackers,
Yeah,
so
sure.
I opened up the thing of graham crackers and took a bite of the first one, and it was disgusting. Apparently, it had been sitting there for too long.
Okay.
I didn't know that graham crackers go bad.
It wasn't that I thought you were going to, your palate had changed, and you no longer like
No,
graham
I still
crackers.
like graham crackers. It's just that this particular one, I don't know what had gone wrong, but there was something wrong. So I hope I don't get that flavor out of there.
Okay.
And I actually did not get any graham cracker flavor.
Well, I mean, there's some...
I get some roasty, I get some coffee, some chocolate, I get that kind of flavor. I'm not sure I'm getting graham cracker.
So this... I mean, there's sweetness, but it's a normal malty sweetness.
There is some sweetness,
Not really...
I'm not getting the graham cracker flavor.
No, not really. But
No.
it's really good. It's
very good.
What does it say? Medium body. It's really strong on the malts.
Yeah,
Malts
I like
are no joke. It's strong chocolate and caramel notes.
This is another one that could be a breakfast beer. It's
Yeah.
kind of filling, and this is restores the tissues. So yeah, it's a good one.
They didn't have much else to do that day, I guess. You did,
That's right.
So, education. Boy, well, there's nothing that AI isn't going to get its grubby little hands in.
That's true.
And so, the question is now, it seems like AI is going to make us not need to think anymore because AI is going to do it for you. So, how is it going to affect the classroom and the normal education system we have?
Well, I want to push back on the first part of what you said a little bit because I see that all the time. I see people saying, we won't be curious. We won't think. We won't have critical thinking skills.
Right.
And my reaction is, are you kidding?
Right.
Now I'm more curious because I can ask more questions. Like I will be sitting there cooking eggs and I'll just have a conversation with ChatGPT about some crazy topic because I can do that.
Very interesting.
Where before I just have to cook the eggs.
Yeah,
now
yeah.
I can find out. What is it
you
about?
and you don't have to go in and type in a new question
Exactly.
for each part of this conversation that you have.
So for the other day, I was thinking about people talk about the problem of evil, which is a significant moral philosophical problem.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, there's also the problem of beauty. I mean, you can flip that on its head. And so I had like a 10-minute conversation with ChatGPT about the problem of evil and the problem of beauty. So it makes me more curious, not less curious. And then in terms of the question, does AI make you have worse critical thinking? Are you kidding? I'm always thinking, now, is what you're telling me actually true? Mm-hmm. Or is this some hallucination, right?
Hallucination, some built-in bias.
Exactly. So I think I am more curious and more critical using AI than
Okay,
before.
well, I think that is one of the criticism is the need to be critical in the way that you're talking about. Because if if you're just going, if you're the person who says, "Well, I read it on the internet,"
Yeah, it must be true. I read it's on
so,
this.
as long as you're not that guy.
As long as you're not that guy, yeah. Okay, we can't help much for that guy.
All right, but the structural classroom stuff.
Yeah.
What are some upsides here? I think one of them is really kind of is what your mom was promising.
Yeah.
Was that you would have personalized learning paths, and it will recognize the
What
weakness.
you get, yeah, and it would recognize both what I'm good at and what I'm not so good at. And rather than having the same amount of time on everything, I breeze through the things I'm good at, and then maybe it gives me more time on the things that I have a harder time understanding.
I mean, I still don't believe it. I still don't know what's going on here because it's so amazing. But it actually can do that.
It can. It's pretty amazing.
It will recognize your weakness. So let's just say you had you put in. You say my essay question is about the Battle of Bull Run, okay, and you start typing or whatever for the essay that you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
it will know where you're. Yes, but have you also considered?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
yes.
It'll just feed you. It will ask the next question based on what the information that you've given.
If it's designed to do that sort of thing, yeah. So. One of the things that would be really cool would be to say, okay, I want you to teach me, let's say I wanted to ask AI to teach me Spanish, for example. And then it could listen to my pronunciation and say, you're really not getting this pronunciation right. Or you're too frequently, you're really not getting the way Spanish works. You're just taking English and sticking Spanish words on top of it.
Right. You're right. The vocabulary is good, but your verb conjugation is weak in the past tense.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so let's go through that. Yeah, so you could see AI looking at what you're good at, what you're not good at, and then helping you with those specific areas.
So tutoring. So
yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Would.
And that would be great, but think of the challenge that would be to the current educational system. You've got all this institutional inertia for having one teacher with multiple students. And what you're talking about now is having every student having their own workstation.
All right, so
doing their own.
So they're right. So there's the institutional change, the investment required, and requiring a certain amount of self-discipline on behalf of the students, and only a quarter of them have that.
Yes, well, well, that is a big problem. I was motivated to want to learn things.
Yes.
Other kids aren't.
No. So you kind of need everybody stop. Eyes on me. Yeah. Eyes on me. Folk, you're right. You're corralling the group to keep them from straying and keep them on topic, as opposed to trusting that they're all going to be using their time properly with their.
So I've heard that there are two different. You could divide education into two different theories. One theory is we should do the best that we can with the best, and the other theory is, or two ways to measure education: how well do we do with our best students? How well do we do with our worst students? Yeah. Right? And some people want to focus on bringing the bottom up.
Yeah.
And some people want to focus on making sure the cream of the crop are really, really good.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have in Oregon and Washington, I think mostly Oregon, they're just getting rid of the AP classes.
Yeah, because that's not fair.
Right. It's creating too much disparity. Yeah. So we want, if everybody can be equally mediocre, then we have achieved more than we have produced some of the smartest kids ever. Yeah, and some of the kids have fallen off, and they were going to fall off anyway. So
Harrison Bergeron. Yeah. So I think the idea is you don't want people to fall below a certain level. You want everybody to be able to read. You want everybody to be able to do basic math, right? So I can see the bottom up perspective. We want everybody to attain a certain level, but at the same time, in order to be competitive, in order for the national security, for the way. Somebody discovering new drugs and all this other kind of stuff, you need to take the smart people, challenge them and move them and make them really good. Because
I mean, I just don't know why you can't. You're going to hurt kids. Well, you're going to hurt kids' feelings if you have two different reading groups, one called the Eagles and one called the Turtles. And everybody knows who they are. And, well,
when I was
we did that.
When I was in junior high school, they had the smart kid class and the not so smart kid class.
Yes, we had like a little bit of everybody class.
Yeah.
And then, we went out and
in our high school,
me and a group of kids went to the class where we read Animal Farm.
Yeah.
In the 6th grade, and it wasn't
the
for
other
everybody.
kids were reading Cat in the Hat. Right? That's right. But in our high school, we had the tech side and the non-tech side, and that was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you had...
Right, there's a tendency against that, but so AI would facilitate that, even if... You might want to just put the smart kids on the AI and the other kids with the teacher to make sure that they're actually doing everything.
Maybe. But another institutional problem is that schools are judged by test scores, not by how well they serve individual students.
Yeah, the old teaching to the test thing, yeah.
Right. So there are a lot of institutional reasons why allowing individual students to have their own personal AI tutor isn't probably going to happen. There's going to be resistance to that. But then there are other questions that AI raises, like if nowadays you give kids homework.
Hold on. Let me stick with the positives for a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
Because there are a couple of positives that really just that benefit the teacher in terms of grading.
Yeah.
The time it takes to read all of the homework, to organize, even parent conference times.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of ways to take the busy work off, the administrative busy work out of the hands of the teacher, leaving the teacher
because
more
the
time
AI can just crank that out, like all of a sudden great. Like I remember talking to teachers complaining about grading papers and having to put together grades at the end of the quarter, at the end of the semester, all that, and it was tough. They had to do all this crazy work to get it done. The AI could just do it like that. Of course, half the time it's hallucinating, but still, they'll fix that.
Can AI read terrible children's handwriting?
That's an interesting question.
Because could you really trust it to read answers that wouldn't, instead of just like multiple choice answers?
I think so, because I think I've read stories about AI being able to decipher ancient manuscripts and things that people couldn't figure out, but they give it to AI and it can figure out.
So one of the Doge kids became a Doger because he had written something that was reading ancient Sumerian AI.
I wonder if AI can figure out that Voynich manuscript, or what that weird manuscript that nobody knows what it is.
Well, I mean, is it genuine, or is it ancient aliens hoaxy stuff?
There's this manuscript that is written in a script that nobody knows what it is, and nobody knows if it's really a language or if and it has all these weird drawings. It's a fantastic manuscript.
Right. It's
but nobody knows what it is.
And is it written in some sort of code that has
that's a possibility. I mean, nobody really knows. Maybe AI will figure that. But another advantage of having this tutor is that you get rid of the dumb teacher problem, because the AI is going to have access to way more knowledge than your teacher is going to have. So if I'm trying to learn about the Battle of Bull Run, and I want to ask a bunch of different questions, the AI is going to know the answers to that. The teacher probably not.
No,
they're not going to know all kinds. Like let's say you're talking about Battle of Bull Run, and you want to say, was there a difference in the type of weapons that were used by the North and the South? Is the teacher going to know that?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Or if you say, how many of the guys on the North had repeating rifles versus the guys in the South? That kind of stuff. The AI is going to know it.
Yeah.
Where the teacher is going, I don't know. Go look it up.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
So those are all good things.
So the teacher isn't dumb. She just doesn't know everything.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. No, I have had some dumb teachers, but none of my teachers knew everything, and AI didn't know everything either. But it knows a whole lot more. So anything else on the positive side?
No. Let's see what problems are.
Yeah. Well, one problem is you send the kid home with an assignment, and they just have AI do it. The kid doesn't learn anything.
So homework becomes meaningless.
Yeah, what is the
possibly.
point of homework?
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of homework anyway.
Yeah.
I think you should be teaching in the class, and once the kids are home, they should be being at home. But this whole idea of giving a kid an assignment, and they just go home and they feed it into ChatGPT, they get an answer, they haven't learned a thing.
No.
Because they haven't figured out how to do the math problem. They've just...
So all at home. So now paper writing
Yeah.
is a problem. Now, since when I was in college, a small school with a very small library that, honestly, if you wanted a decent book that wasn't one of the 500 books in the library,
you had to order it from somewhere
you
else.
had to get it from the University of Maryland, and
Yeah.
it would be there in a week.
Right.
Now, so this problem existed just with the internet in terms the spike in, I imagine, plagiarism.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
now
this-
it's really bad.
Yeah. So it was definitely...
But there are plagiarism detectors. They do
Yes.
have teachers
Yes.
have a way of taking a student's paper, because I mean some people had access to computers, but a lot of them didn't. I mean, when I was in college, I was still handwriting papers.
Yeah. Well, I remember handwriting some papers and typing on a manual typewriter, some other ones. Yeah.
Backspacing.
I have a friend who's a college professor, and he had this kid who wasn't a very bright student, and handed in this paper that was just way above this kid's mental ability, and he was sure that he had plagiarized it, but he was like wondering, how am I going to prove this? And this friend has his entire basement is a library. He's got a zillion books,
Right.
and he was looking around in his library, and he found the book that this guy had copied his paper from just by chance. And then he confronted him and said, well, this is...
Yeah.
But now, how are you going to do that? Because it's not that you've plagiarized from a book. AI doesn't do that. AI takes material from a bunch of different places and synthesizes it and creates new stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can say you stole this from such and so book. Mm-hmm. It's a brand new thing, but it's still not the student doing it.
Right. But the thing, back in my day, if you found a really good idea that totally fits your thing, all you have to do is cite it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It actually shows that you've done some research.
Yes.
It's not like you're stealing the idea, like as written in this book.
Yeah.
And then you comment on it and you carry on with your.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with
good.
lifting information.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be learning from these other things. And the problem with AI is it's creating a plausible sounding story that might be true and might be false, actually, because AI doesn't know what it's saying. It's like a really
certainly seems that way.
No, it's absolutely true. I spent a bunch of time.
Right.
I spent a bunch of time the last couple of weeks researching into how AI works and what it's doing when it's generating text.
Well,
it doesn't understand anything. It's just it's like a really, really good parrot.
Right.
It spits out things, words that sound like they should go in this place. And most of the time it creates really, really good stuff. Sometimes it just lies. Sometimes it makes things up.
Right.
Because it doesn't know the difference between true and false and right and wrong. It doesn't know whether something actually happened. It's just figuring out this symbol goes well with this other symbol. So there's that problem, that you don't have kind of a reality fact check with AI.
True. Yeah.
But still, if you don't, it kind of gets back to the calculator problem. When you're trying to teach math to kids and you let them do the answer on a calculator, then they never really understand the math. They're just doing it on a calculator.
Yeah.
And in the same way, if kids are just getting their answers from AI, then they're never really understanding the
so
issue.
this is what I would do. No more papers. I would say you're here in our let's stick with the Civil War.
Yeah.
Our Civil War class. Tomorrow or 3 weeks from now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you to write 3 half-page essays in class.
In class.
These are the 8 possible topics.
Yeah.
and then when you get to class, I'll give you 4, and you can pick your 3.
I remember that exact
Right? That's a
thing
good
happened.
structure.
That's what happened to me in college.
Yeah.
They would give us a series of questions. I'm going to ask you some of these questions. You need to be prepared to answer them, but you had to do it in class with a pen on a piece of paper.
So if at home you want to ask AI for bullet points for all 8 of those,
Yeah.
study all of those,
Yeah.
and be able to produce it in class, well, then you've learned.
Exactly. That's learning too.
Yeah.
That's
So
reasonable.
Yes, I mean, you didn't go out and do the, get the encyclopedia. Like
You didn't go to the
Okay.
library and translate it from the French and everything else.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it did kind of the easy part for you, or the hard part, but
you still learned something.
requires you to learn enough to write an essay from all 8 of these things. These are the 8 things that me as a teacher expect you to have learned in the course of the semester.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to do that kind of testing. And essays are out. Homework is almost meaningless.
Yes. So that's a good solution. Another solution is to have the kid have to stand up and answer some questions, in front of the teacher.
Yeah.
Where you wrote this paper on Moby Dick. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. I'm going to ask you some questions about Moby Dick, and if you can't answer them, then you're not going to pass.
And it would be pretty apparent pretty quick.
It would. Yeah.
it
So
could be
I think that's a reasonable kind of solution. So I think AI can be used effectively in education, but we're going to have to rethink things.
Yes, but this requirement. What about online learning?
Right. Yes. so
Almost,
that's-
it's almost pointless.
What if it's a lot of universities now are doing distance education?
Yeah.
Where, okay, if I have my computer here where I'm connected to Hillsdale College, and then I have my laptop over here where I'm connected to
The
Claude
workload,
or
yeah.
ChatGPT or whatever, and I'm just like getting the answer over here and then typing it in over here, how is that going to work?
I don't-
Online education seems like it's too easy to fake that in the era of AI.
It is, and while I get, I don't want to. Am I aging myself here by saying, the point of that education needs to be in person and needs to be, needs to have human interaction between you and the other students. And
What
the
if you did it on
teacher
Zoom or
and-
something, where you're interacting with the teacher and the teacher knows that you're there and paying attention?
Right, but there's still the testing problem.
Yeah, the testing problem is a big problem.
Unless
You do that through Zoom, where they're actually watching you.
yeah,
They're quizzing you in real time.
and creepily monitoring your every move.
That's right.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of cameras on them to
Yeah.
make sure they're not doing something sneaky under the table here.
Yeah, you
Right.
see, even that. I mean, that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
online
I think,
education
I think online education is.
It's going to be challenged.
It's going to be challenged by this because what's valid?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're taking these programming classes.
And how long
And
is
do
it
you
going to
need
be?
and what is the benefit of learning to program?
Because AI can do programming better than most programmers. And also, how long is it going to be before the student can have an AI image of themselves interacting with the teacher while they're doing some other thing?
Busy plagiarizing.
That's right. While they're busy looking things up on their laptop on the side. So anyway, I think there are some very interesting benefits to using AI. I use it all the time. It's very interesting, but it's going to be a huge challenge to education.
But it's AI is a disruptor in every aspect, and you would expect it to disrupt education as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah, and we should also thank our faithful listener Susie Q, who asked us to talk about this topic.
okay.
Yeah. So thanks for the question. If you have a question you want to submit to us or a idea, pigweedshow@gmail.com.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else on your mind?
I have a man of the week.
A man of the week.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes. I would like to nominate Target, the store. Yeah.
You mean the gun range up in?
No. I'm talking about the behemoth.
Target, the one that you said was dead to you because they didn't have any patriotic stuff on the 4th of July.
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
I think
Yes, that was me. Mm-hmm. That was me. I said dead to me. And I guess what I really meant was dead to me until you redeem yourself.
Mm.
And so, yes, 2 years ago, we were having a brew day, and I said, I just need some,
patriotic stuff, yeah.
Yeah, go in there, the 2nd of July to get some napkins and a tablecloth.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Not
I could
a single.
find nothing.
Yeah.
But I did find a reduced section of Pride stuff that they had not sold in June.
Ways to bind girls' chests and other kinds of things.
So I said, all right, you are dead to me. Not even that. And then the next year, they kicked it up a notch in terms of their Pride affiliation.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, that's fine because I already rejected you because
you're already dead to me. So
you're already dead to me because of the patriotic thing.
Right.
I don't need to re-dead you because of the increased Pride business.
Right.
Well. So I hear that you're not going to find that in... Oh, no. 2 things.
Okay.
First off, there are people who are really, really, really mad that they have dispensed with their DEI policies.
Not me. I'm not one of those people.
So I'm going, first off,
DEI policies are so dumb.
There are people...
Unbelievable.
And this was an organized black boycott.
Okay.
So what you're saying is, I'm mad that you don't deny people employment and opportunities based on their skin color.
Mm-hmm.
Is this upside down world?
Yes, it is. DEI is upside down world. DEI is everything that we were taught, everything the civil rights movement was trying. We were growing up around all the time. All that stuff was getting implemented, and people were working this stuff out. And what we were taught, what we were indoctrinated in was, no, you have to look at somebody's capabilities, not their skin color. You have to look at what they're good at. You look at their skills. You can't judge them by these superficial characteristics. Yeah. And DEI flips that on its head and says, no, you have to look at these superficial. And with a straight face. Yeah, and with it, yes.
I'm going, do you hear the words that are coming out of your mouth?
Have you really thought this through? No, you haven't.
Obviously, you have not. So, okay, there's redemption number 1.
Okay.
Redemption number 2 is I have not been back, but trust me, I'm going back.
Mm-hmm.
People filming inside of Target a bunch of red, white, and blue displays getting ready for the 4th of July.
Okay.
And 0 rainbows.
All right.
Now, I don't know if it's just in this person's hometown. I will check out we have to go in the night between now and the 4th of July.
Okay.
And see if this is legit.
I will go to my local Target and see what's going on there.
Yeah. See red, white, and blue versus rainbow.
Okay.
See how that goes.
But, fantastic.
Yes. Well, I guess that's the little moral of the story is, you should never write somebody off
forever.
You can't say dead to me. Without the caveat of, but
unless you change your mind,
we can all be redeemed.
You can be redeemed.
We can all. Their redemption is real.
So how do we tie all this? I think the way we tie all this together is we go into Target with ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT what we're seeing, and ask it
if it's a real thing. Yeah. Has Target really turned around?
Yeah, I think that's what we have to do.
But I have faith in you, Target.
Okay, well, good deal. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.